In today's lesson, we're just going to do some reviewing of Chapter 5. I'd like you to put all of these extra examples into a blank sheet of paper that you can add to your notes. When we take the test, you will be able to use these extra notes on the test, so be sure to make sure you're copying these down on a separate sheet of paper. All right, so today for this one we are subtracting. On the test, it's really important that every single problem you identify what it is that we're doing. So 4 minus 1 and 5/7. I know that when I'm subtracting, I'm supposed to have a common denominator, so I need to rename this 4 to be a 3 and 7/7. Okay, and so then I have a common denominator, so I can subtract the whole numbers. So I'm going to have 2 and then 7 minus 5 over 7, which is 2 and 2/7. And I can't simplify that, so I'm good right there. So let's look at the next example. 5/4 plus, so we are adding 3 and 1/10. So I need a common denominator here. Another thing I noticed is that this is an improper fraction. So since I'm adding, I can actually get this into a mixed number. If I subtract 4, I would have 1 left. So I can go 1 and 1/4 plus 3 and 1/10. So now I can get a common denominator. The denominator I'm going to use here is 20, so let's go with times 2, and we'll go with times 5. So when we rewrite this, it's going to be 1 and 5/20 plus 3 and 2/20, which now we can add our whole numbers, is 4 and then 5 plus 2 over 20, which is 4 and 7/20. If you didn't notice that that was an improper fraction, it would be okay if you just multiply top and bottom by 5 to get a common denominator. And then you're going to have to regroup here at the end and rename to make, you would have had like 3 and 27/20, and then you could have made another whole to make 4 and 7/20. So either way you do it, it's fine. If you do notice it early, you can change it early. Alright, so on to some multiplication. When we are multiplying, you can't have mixed numbers, so we need to go ahead and change this to an improper fraction. 5 times 2, so we're going to add 10. So let's rewrite that. 11 halves times 3 halves. So now when we multiply, we can check to see if we can simplify anything. We can't in this problem, so let's multiply straight across to get 33/4. Think of your multiples of 4. I know I can go 4 times 8 is 32, so let's subtract 32 to get 1 left. So I'm going to have 8 whole and 1 out of 4, and that can't be simplified any further. So the next example again is multiplication, so let's get these into improper fractions. So 5 times 3, we're going to add 15. 2 times 2, we're going to add 4. So let's rewrite it as 16/3 times 5 halves. So we can simplify a little bit here. Let's go with a divide by 2 to make 1, divide by 2 to make 8. Now we can multiply across to get 40 over 3. Think of your multiples of 3 here. I can take away 39. 3 times 13 is 39. It's going to give me 1 left over. So I'm going to have 13 and 1/3 for an answer. And I can't simplify that any further. So we're going to go on to the next page here for some more examples. I see now I'm dividing. And with division, again, you can't have mixed numbers, so let's make that into an improper fraction. So let's add 32 to the numerator, and we'll go 5/4 divided by 35/8. And then let's go ahead and change this to multiplication. So we're going to go 5/4 times 8/35. Alright, so now looking at this, I can do some simplifying here. The 4 is going to be a 1, 8 is going to be a 2, 5 is going to be a 1, 35 is going to be a 7. Now I can multiply across, and I'm going to get 2/7 as my answer. So going down again, division. Again, it's important to identify what it is that we're doing. So division, we cannot have mixed numbers. So let's go ahead and multiply here and add 24. Multiply here, again, it's adding 24. So let's rewrite it as 25 over 8 divided by 29 over 8. And then let's go ahead and change the multiplication. So 25 over 8 times 8 over 29. The 8's can cancel here. So then let's multiply across, and we get 25 29ths. And that can't be simplified any further, so that's going to be our final answer. Alright, so we have a bunch of examples here of solving equations. So let's start here in the upper left. I am multiplying n times negative 3/5. So normally we would divide by negative 3/5, but we don't divide by fractions, so we're going to multiply by negative 5/3. And whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So let's multiply by negative 5/3. And notice here what's going to happen is my negatives are going to cancel, my 3's are going to cancel, my 5's are going to cancel. What's the only thing that I have left over here is n, so we'll bring the n down. And n equals, okay, so here over here, my negatives will cancel, my 5's will cancel, my 3 will turn to a 1, and my 9 will turn into a 3. So the only thing I have left over here is just the 3 as a numerator, so n is equal to 3. So that worked out really nicely. We were able to cancel out a lot of things. Alright, so let's go over here. Again, k is being multiplied by negative 3/7. So we would normally divide by negative 3/7, but instead of dividing, we're going to multiply by negative 7/3. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So let's multiply by negative 7/3 over here. And now let's start the simplifying process. So the negatives are gone. The 7's are gone. The 3's are gone. The only thing I'm left with is k. Okay, the negatives over here are gone. The 7 is gone. The 28 can change to a 4. The 3 is gone. The 15 can change to a 5 because here we were multiplying by 3's. Alright, so the only thing I'm left with is 5 over 4, so I can write that right here. And I can regroup this and rename it. I can make one whole, and I'll have 1/4 left over. So k is equal to 1 and 1/4. Alright, down here, I'm looking at n, and I am currently dividing by 7. So the opposite of dividing by 7 is multiplying by 7. Okay, so whatever you do to one side, you're going to do to the other. We're going to multiply by 7. Now, over here, we have a fraction, so let's write 7 as a fraction. And over here, we have a fraction, so let's write 7 as a fraction there as well. Alright, so let's start crossing things off if we can. So 7's are gone. And this is just a 1, so the only thing I'm left with is n. Alright, here the 7 and the 63. Okay, the 7 is gone. The 63 can be a 9. And this is just a 1. So I have negative 22 over 9. Alright, and I'm going to extend this a little bit. So now think of your multiples of 9. I know that 18 would create a whole, so I'm going to subtract 18 there. And I'm not going to worry about the fact that this is negative right now, so I know that's kind of difficult. Just think of 22 minus 18, and I do have 4 left. So I can make 2 whole. Remember, it's negative. So negative 2, and I'm going to have 4 over 9 left over. So that would be equal to n. Again, we're not concerned whether this is negative at this point. We already know our answer is going to be negative. We're just trying to figure out how many whole we can make, or whole integers. Alright, so over here we are multiplying by negative 5/3. So we would normally divide, but we don't divide by fractions. So let's multiply by negative 3/5 on both sides. So multiply by negative 3/5. Okay, so let's start crossing some things out. The negatives will cancel. 3's, 5's. The only thing I'm left with is positive b. Alright, so we have b equal to. Now I noticed something here is I have a mixed number. So what I'm going to do is I will cross off my negatives, and I'm going to rewrite it as 3/5. And then I'm going to do 1 times 2, that's 2, so I'm going to add 2. So I'm going to go times 3 halves. So I just got rid of my negatives, and now I renamed this 1 1/2 to 3 halves. Now I can't simplify anything, so let's just multiply across, and I'm going to get 9/10. And I can't simplify that, so 9/10 equals B. And that's my answer. Okay, so some word problems. Again, these questions are just like the ones you're going to have on your test. Studying after school, Tim spends 3/7 of an hour studying mathematics and 2/5 of an hour studying history. What is the total time Tim spends studying? So whenever it says total time, we want to add. So let's go 3/7 plus 2/5. Think of a common denominator here. Well, I'm going to use 35, so let's multiply by 5 on top and bottom. Multiply by 7 on top and bottom over here. So let's go with 15 over 35 plus 14 over 35. And so now we can go 15 plus 14 all over 35, which is 29/35. And now I say of an hour. Okay, so that would be my total answer. And I can't simplify that any further. So again, the key word here is when it says total time, we need to make sure we're adding. You're going to have a question just like this on your test and on your practice test. It takes Alexis 25 minutes to walk to her friend's house 1 1/3 miles away. What is her walking pace in miles per hour? Okay, so they want the answer in miles per hour, but we have the question in minutes. So we need to figure out what fraction is 25 minutes of an hour. So let's go with 25 over 60. Again, you're going to have a question just like this on the test. That's why we're doing this as an example. You're also going to have one like this on the practice test. You're going to have to be able to convert minutes into a fraction of an hour. So 25 minutes over 60 minutes. This is an hour. So we want to simplify this as much as we can. Let's divide by 5. So 25 divided by 5 is 5. 60 divided by 5, well, like one time it goes in, 5 goes into 60 one time, and there will be 10 left over, and 5 goes into 10 twice. So that would be 5/12. All right, so that we just figured out it's 5/12 of an hour. She didn't walk 25 minutes, she walked for 5/12 of an hour. So what is her walking pace in miles per hour? Well, when we write miles per hour, it's always miles on top and hours on the bottom. So this is miles divided by hours. All right, so miles is 1 1/3 divided by hours, which is 5/12. Okay, so since we're dividing, we need to get this into an improper fraction. So 1 times 3 is 3, so we'll add 3. So we'll go with 4/3 divided by 5/12. Okay, and now let's change this into multiplication. So let's go 4/3 times 12/5. All right, and I can't simplify, well, I can do the 3 and the 12. So the 3 will be a 1 and the 12 will be a 4. I can't simplify anything else, so let's multiply across, and we'll get 16 over 5. And I can think of my multiples of 5, and I can subtract 15 to get 1 left. And 15 will actually make 3 whole with 1/5 left over. Now let's figure out what our units are. So 3 1/5 miles per hour. So that's how fast she's walking. 3 1/5 miles per hour. MPH is fine there. Again, let's make sure you have all of these notes down because you're going to have to do this on the test and on your practice test. Convert this into miles, into hours, your 25 minutes in 60 minutes, so that'll get it into hours, and then you need to take your miles and divide it by your hours. As long as you follow these steps, you'll be fine on both the practice test and on the test. Another question that will show up on your test, okay? A recipe calls for 1 3/4 cups of chocolate chips. If the recipe is quadrupled, that's times 4, how many cups of chocolate chips are needed? So we're going to take 1 3/4 times 4. All right, let's get this into improper fraction, so let's add 4 to the top. So let's go 7/4 times 4 over 1. Cancel the 4's, and we're going to get 7 cups. So that's how many chocolate chips we're going to need. We're going to need 7 cups of chocolate chips if we quadruple the recipe. Okay, so you might have triple the recipe or double the recipe. What you do is you just multiply it by however much you needed in the first place. Okay, another question that you're going to see on the test and practice test, it says find the perimeter. Well, remember perimeter, we just add the 3 numbers. So we're going to do 4 and 1/18 plus 4 and 1/3 plus 3 and 2/9. So look at your numbers. What's going to be the common denominator? We can make them all equal to 18. So let's multiply this by 6, multiply this by 2, and rewrite the whole thing. So 4 and 1/18 plus 4 and 6/18 plus 3 and 4/18. Now let's add all of our whole numbers. 4 and 4 make 8, plus 3 more is 11, and then we're going to go 1 plus 6 plus 4 all over 8. So we're going to get 11 and 11/8, which we can subtract the whole from that to get 3 left over. So we're going to make 12 and 3/8. And let's figure out what our units are going to be. Centimeters. 12 and 3/8 centimeters is equal to the perimeter. So when it asks for perimeter, just go ahead and add all those things up. All right, I have one more example for you. I know this is a longer one, but we are getting ready for a test and our practice test. So it says find the perimeter and area. So we need to do 2 things. You're going to have a question like this on your test. So perimeter, we just add them all up. So perimeter of a rectangle with a length of 5.5 feet and a width of 4 feet. If you get a question like this, what I want everyone to do is draw a picture. So everyone should have a rectangle. The length is 5.5 feet, so go ahead and put 5.5 feet there and 5.5 feet there. And the width is 4 feet, so we're going to write 4 feet and 4 feet. So to find the perimeter, just add all these up. So perimeter equals 4 plus 4 plus 5 1/2 plus 5 1/2. So let's we have a common denominator, so let's just add all of our whole numbers. So 5 and 5 make 10, plus 4 and 4 is 8, so we have 18. And I would have 1 plus 1 over 2, which is 18, and 2 over 2, which is 19 feet. So that is my perimeter. Okay, so now let's talk about area. Area is length times width. Well, let's take 5.5 times 4 then. So area equals 5 1/2 times 4. Well, let's get this into an improper fraction so we can multiply. So 5 times 2, we're going to add 10. So we're going to go with 11 halves times 4 over 1. Let's write that as an improper fraction as well. Let's change the 4 to a 2, and let's get rid of the 2, make it a 1. So I'm going to be left with 22 over 1, which is equal to 22. Now let's think about our units here. We're talking about area, so we're going to say 22 feet squared, and that's our final answer. So you will have a question just like this one on the test as well. Perimeter, just draw a picture and add them all up. Area, again, look at your picture and you're going to do length times width, and all you're doing here is multiplying a mixed number times a whole number, or possibly a mixed number times a fraction, depending on what it looks like on the test. Again, it's really important that you have all of these notes down so that way you can use this on the test and help you out. On the practice test, be sure to check the answer key that I have posted onto Moodle. And again, make sure you review these notes and have everything ready for the test.